Life and business can feel chaotic when you're trying to do it all. That's where Andy Melton Coaching comes in. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Andy Melton has helped high-achieving leaders find freedom in their time, relationships, finances, and purpose. His 90-minute strategic rhythm reset is more than a coaching session. It's a chance to redesign your week so you can get more done without burning out. You'll create a personalized rhythm blueprint that aligns your goals and priorities and walk away with a clear plan to focus your energy. Trade chaos for clarity and bring your dreams to life. To learn more and book your session, visit scalinguph2o.com/Andy Melton. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/ANDYMELTON. Don't wait. Schedule a strategic rhythm reset with Dr. Andy Melton today. Think back to the last time you were uncertain about a reading. Wouldn't it be great if you could trust every measurement? That's why I love what Hach has done with their NH6000 SC ammonium analyzer. It's built on gas-sensing electrode technology and gives you reliable, interference-free readings, so you can confidently focus on your work. It's tough enough to live outdoors all year, so you can put it where you actually need it. Even better, you only swap out the reagents every 6 months. That's just 2 quick maintenance touch points a year, freeing up your time for what matters. Plus, when you need help, real people at Hach are ready to back you up. They've been the trusted name in water quality for decades. Ready to see for yourself? Visit scalinguph2o.com/Hach. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/HACH. Check it out today and discover how precision can really pay off. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. My name is Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And Scaling Up Nation, we are at the Association of Water Technology's annual conference and expo. And I sure hope that you are here. I have met so many people from the Scaling Up Nation. It is my favorite time of year because I get to meet all of you. So many people I've already met in the Scaling Up Nation, so many new friends that I've met in the Scaling Up Nation. And of course, we're seeing all sorts of people walking around with their Scaling Up H2O button. And as you know, that is the magic button. And why is it magic? It's because it is a magic icebreaker, because I know for at least half of the population out there, it is difficult to walk up to somebody that you do not know and introduce yourself. How in the world are you going to do that, especially when there are so many people in an exhibit hall like the Association of Water Technologies? That is where the magic button comes in. You get to walk up, you see somebody with that Scaling Up H2O button, and you say, I listened to that podcast too. What's your favorite episode? Hey, what do you think Trace should talk about next? Hey, do you have a guest that Trace should interview on the podcast? You can insert anything that you want, but the goal is that you are talking to somebody new, and that magic button broke the ice for you. So if you're listening to this right now and you're at the Association of Water Technologies and you do not have a magic button, go to the ribbon wall and you will see a great big bin of Scaling Up H2O buttons. Of course, if you see me, you know I'm going to have some. I will be happy to give some to you. Feel free to take some back to your team. If you know somebody that's not listening to this podcast and you think they should be listening to this podcast, go ahead and get a button for them as well to remind them to listen to this podcast. I mean, how awesome is it that we're in the best job in the world and we have so much weekly content around being in the best job in the world? Can you imagine if you did not know about the Scaling Up H2O podcast and then all of a sudden somebody said there are over 450 episodes for you to listen to all about your industry? Well, Nation, that is an amazing day. I've heard so many people say that they've heard about the podcast through a friend and they had no idea that all that content was out there, and it totally changed their windshield time. Now, I know sports talk and all the other podcasts out there, you got to listen to those sometimes, but when you can use your windshield time to increase your base knowledge about your profession, to think a little bit differently about how you're going to perform the activities you're getting ready to perform at your customers, to get a little challenge each and every week to try to think about something or do something. Well, Nation, that is this podcast. And all of those things and all of the Scaling Up Nation members, we are raising the bar of the industrial water treatment industry. We're all doing that together. And by you sharing the information that there is a podcast called Scaling Up H2O out there, you are helping all of us raise the bar. Because if we all do the things that we're learning in this podcast and we're learning from our guests, just imagine how much better our customers' locations are going to be. Just imagine how much better this industry is going to be. And Nation, I can keep naming things. It just gets better, and it gets better because of you. So make sure whenever you're talking to somebody that's in this industry, you mention this podcast, because every time we get a new Scaling Up Nation member, we raise that bar a little bit higher. Well, Nation, if you are listening to this podcast and you are at AWT and you haven't seen me, come looking for me. Now, you might be asking, Trace, this is a big place. Where am I going to find you? So if you are listening to this podcast on the very day that it drops, you can find me giving a presentation at 2 p.m. today. And that presentation is called Crafting Compelling Presentations. Yes, I'm going to teach you how I craft my presentations. And if you've ever seen me present, I try not to do death by PowerPoint. There's not 20 paragraphs on my PowerPoint slides. What I try to do is a picture just to punctuate the point that I am trying to make within my presentation. And I've got a system totally stolen by one of my mentors, but I have a system that I use to make sure that I'm breaking down the information in a way that people can understand and want to lean in to get that information. And I'm going to share all of that with you at 2 p.m. today. Now, if you heard the podcast before last week, you heard that for several years, AWT has not chosen one of Trace Blackmore's abstracts. And I said, you know what, for 2025, I really want to speak for AWT again. I've given lots of papers for AWT, but it's been a while, and I wanted to make sure that they chose one of my presentations. So I didn't submit one abstract. I didn't submit two abstracts or three. Yes, I submitted 4 abstracts, and what do you know? They selected every single one of them. So I hope to see you a lot in my presentation. So right after my presentation, I'm going to be doing another one called Reframing Your Company Message, starting with why instead of what. And this comes straight from Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why. If you've taken my sales course, you know it's all built on why you do what you do. Forget about what and how. We can talk about that later. but people want to connect with why you do what you do. And I'm going to be talking all about that. Well, maybe you want some more Trace Blackmore. So come and see me Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is the working genius. So I am going to be giving the basics around the working genius to AWT, and I'm going to share some things that the working genius has done for me, my company, and my clients when I go out and facilitate with other AWT members. Working Genius is a fantastic tool, and it is a great language to talk about work. So I really hope to see you in that one. And then you don't even have to move your seats. Right after that, the presentation that started it all, this is the one that AWT turned down for at least 3 years, the power of processes in water treatment efficiency. Folks, my love language is creating processes and trying to streamline them, making sure everybody can follow them, making sure that they eliminate potential mistakes. Because as we all know, in this field, mistakes can be very costly. In this field, mistakes can be very dangerous. So we're going to be talking about how do you create a process that people, one, want to follow, and it makes sure that we're trying to eliminate those mistakes that we were just talking about. So I hope to see you at one or all of those. It's always good to have a fan base at presentations. Please do not bring rotten fruit. I look forward to seeing you there. And if you are looking to find me, you know where I am going to be now. Now, last week, I told you that I had some super secret information, but I couldn't share it. Here is what I couldn't share. And Nation, I am so excited to tell all of you this. Now, many of you were at the awards banquet last night, and you already know this. But ladies and gentlemen, our friend James McDonald received the Innovation Award last night from the Association of Water Technologies. James, a better person could not have been selected for that award. And we accepted that award on behalf of the podcast last year. So cool to have you in that club. And Nation, we hear from James each and every week. We know all of the things that James contributes with this podcast, but I want to make sure you really know all of the things. I'm going to say all of the things. This is just a brief listing of some of the things that James does for our industry. Now, he was the one that created Industrial Water Week. Now, we celebrate that each and every year. I am particularly proud of a few weeks ago when we celebrated Industrial Water Week. This was our strongest year yet. Next year is going to be even better, but we wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for James McDonald. So James, thank you for creating a holiday for us. And then, of course, this is my favorite thing that James does. It's Detective H2O. And so many people have lent their voice to characters for Detective H2O. Myself, Mark Lewis, Laith Charles, several people have written some scripts for Detective H2O. And then, of course, James curates all that, makes sure it fits the genre, and then we create those episodes. And we had 5 brand new ones this year. And James tells me that we are going to do 5 new ones for next year. And of course, we all know James for this podcast and his weekly installments. This year, it is Water You Know. Previous years, we had Drop by Drop. We had the periodic water table. We had Thinking on Water. We had James's Challenge. We had Reading with James. And I think there were a few more in there. So James is such an amazing contributor, not just to the industry, but this podcast. And I think I've told this on a previous podcast. When I thought about doing this podcast, James was one of the first people that I called. And without missing a beat, he said, yes, we need this podcast. You need to do it. Start today. So, James, thank you for that direction. I absolutely love doing this podcast, and I love collaborating with you on this podcast. Now, something, if you don't follow James, maybe you don't know this, he does cartoons and memes about this industry. And Nation, it's just a really fun way to look at our industry and our careers. So if you haven't seen those memes, if you haven't seen those cartoons, we're going to have some listed on our show notes page. And of course, he has an industrial water website where all of these items that I've mentioned, and even ones that I haven't, are all curated for you. We're going to have a link to that on our show notes page. He did a motivational poster series called Be Like Water. And for the longest time, that was my wallpaper. And my windows would cycle through a different one every time it opened up. And I know I've used that during training courses for the Association of Water Technologies. And if you didn't know, James published a book called Drop by Drop. And I've gotten a lot of ideas for podcast episodes from that book. It's a lot of the technical papers that James has written throughout his career. And if you don't have it, it's available on Amazon. We're going to have a link for that on our show notes page. James just does so much. So that's what James does. And, what James is he's a certified water technologist. He's the technical committee chairperson, an industry educator, founder of Industrial Water Week. He contributes to this podcast more than weekly. We do so much with James. He does technical training for different organizations. He develops software. He's an author, an industry leader. I can just keep going on and on about James McDonald, but I'm going to say, James, congratulations. I and the entire Scaling Up Nation are just so excited to see you go on stage last night and to be able to tell the entire world that you are this year's recipient of the Innovation Award given out by the Association of Water Technologies. Congratulations, James. Now, Nation, I think now would be a great time for a brand new What Do You Know?
Hello and welcome to What Do You Know? The game show where we find out what do you know about industrial water treatment, drop by drop. So pump up your brain, take out that test kit of knowledge, and prepare to answer this week's question on What Do You Know? Today's question is, what is the device called that is installed on the effluent line of an ion exchange unit to prevent resin from ending up downstream where it doesn't belong? A resin trap, or perhaps even a media trap. There are various designs available, but resin traps are intended to catch both gradual and catastrophic resin losses to prevent the loss of valuable resin, plus the negative impacts on downstream equipment. I'm James McDonald, and thanks for playing along with us. Stay tuned for next week's episode of What Do You Know?
Well, James, once again, congratulations on the Innovation Award. So proud to see you accept that last night. And once again, thank you for all that you contribute to this podcast. And thank you for all that you contribute to this industry. Now, Nation, we are at the Association of Water Technologies right now. And many of you heard about this conference from this podcast. So you know that we have valuable information about all the water-related related conferences that are coming up. And I want you to take advantage of going to scalinguph2o.com, going over to our events page, and start planning next year's calendar. We have so many things listed. What are the ones that you want to go to? What are the ones that you don't even have to travel to because they are so close to you? And carve out time right now before your schedule starts getting too tight. And now you can protect that time. And the only way you can do that is by going to our events page, again, scalinguph2o.com/events, and just start reading all the things and all the locations and all the different shows that we have there, and start planning what you want to do, like so many of you did to attend the Association of Water Technologies conference. Now, next week, we are all going to be missing the Association of Water Technologies conference, and it's going to be very sad. And you're going to say, I really wish I was able to meet some person, insert random name here. Well, nation, you will still have an opportunity next week to potentially meet that people, to reconnect with people you have already met, and have some fun in the process. Now, what am I talking about? I am talking about the hang. So next week, we have your relief for the AWT convention being over blues. Because next week, November 20th, Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we are going to do the hang. And it is our post-AWT convention hang. You're going to want to participate in this. It's going to allow you to reconnect, to not feel sad that it's over, and maybe continue some of those conversations that you are starting this week. Very easy to register for the hang. Just go to scalinguph2o.com/hang, HANG, and you will be registered. And it is on Zoom, but it is like no other Zoom call that you have been on before. Yes, it is going to be a fantastic time. You're going to meet people. You're going to rekindle conversations with previous people, and you're going to have fun in the process. All that information is on that website, and I can't wait to see you there. Well, nation, so many people at the convention this week are talking about wastewater, and our guest today is probably one of the biggest cheerleaders when it comes to wastewater. I can't wait to introduce you to our next guest. Here it is. My lab partner today is Robin Deal, AquaPure Product Manager at Hubbard-Hall. Robin, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thank you for having me today, Trace.
I'm really excited about today's topic. Our listeners have told me that they want more wastewater, and that's what they're going to get today.
Absolutely. I am so passionate about wastewater. I hope we have a good dialogue.
I have no doubt that we will. To get that started off right, would you mind telling the Scaling Up Nation a bit about yourself?
Sure, no problem. So my name is Robin Deal. I work for a company called Hubbard-Hall. We manufacture chemicals for the manufacturing industry, and I manage our wastewater product line. I am a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 3. So I have a pretty interesting family. Both of my sons are in the water industry as well. And my daughter works with children on the autism spectrum. And then my husband is a mechanic. So we're very down to earth people. We love to get together and cook and eat and play board games and hang out at the pool.
I love that. What brought you into this industry?
So it's a very interesting story. A lot of people kind of laugh at it. About 18 years ago, I was working for a hand tool manufacturer, but I was working in their pack department. So we made sockets and we brought in wrenches and Allen wrenches and all kinds of stuff from other locations, and we packed them at the facility I worked at. And I hated that job, Trace. I despised it. If you can imagine standing in line and literally just reaching in front of you and grabbing 2 things out of a bin and dropping it in a case as the case rolled by you. for 12 hours a day. That was packed.
Wow.
And so I did that for about 3 years. I worked my way up to where I was managing a division of the PAC department, and I was absolutely miserable. So I went to my boss and I said, "Hey, I'm going to quit. This is my 2-week notice." And she said, "Robin, don't quit. You've got some longevity here. You're invested. We want to keep you. Go look at the job board. And maybe you'll want to move to the plating line or the laser line. There's a lot of jobs posted." So I went and looked at the job board and there was a wastewater job posted. And it was for a third shift, and I'm a night owl. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to sign for that job." And she said, "Robin, don't do that. Don't do that. You won't like that." I said, "Why not?" She said, "Well, it's in the basement." And I was like, "Oh, we have a basement? No one told me there was a basement here." She goes, "It's a night." I was like, "I love night shift. I'd much rather be on night." She goes, "You'll have to go outside." I'm like, "I get to breathe fresh air." Like everything was checking the winds. And so I got the job. I was one of the only people who signed for it. And they hired me as the first female wastewater operator at that facility. They sent me back to school in North Carolina, where I live. You have to have a wastewater license equivalent to the facility you're running. And I'm very fortunate in that North Carolina has a physical chemical track for licensing wastewater operators. A lot of states don't have that. So they sent me to get my physical chemical wastewater operator license. And I worked my way up to being the ORC, operator in responsible charge of our plant. We had 4 wastewater systems under our roof, and we ran on average 1.5 million gallons a day. I loved it. And then one day we got sold. We were sold to an investment firm, a holding company. And within 2 years, the holding company announced they were closing my plant down. So in 2013, I walked out of that facility for the last time the week of Thanksgiving. And on January 1st, 2014, I started as a technical field service engineer for Hubbard-Hall in the Southeast. And I've been doing it ever since.
And what does Hubbard-Hall do?
So we are the oldest single family owned chemical manufacturer in the United States. We started 176 years ago in Waterbury, Connecticut as an apothecary's hall. And over the years, we have grown with the times, and we now manufacture chemicals for the metal finishing industry. So anything metal finishing related, you can come to us and we can help you with it. And I run, as I mentioned before, and as we're discussing today, our wastewater product line. So we specialize in removing heavy metals and toxins from industrial waste streams. We do things like cyanide destruction, hexavalent chrome reduction. We're looking into PFAS removal and destruction technologies right now. So that's what we do.
Thank you for sharing your origin story. That's very interesting. I'm curious, what on your first day took place? A person you were talking to, like, that's a horrible job, and you're thinking, this is the best job ever. Now you have the job. What was that first day like?
So the very first day, Ricky, who was the gentleman who trained me, took me down to wastewater. And there's massive tanks. There's all these pumps. There's water moving. The water coming in from the plating line, the vibratory line. It's dark green. It smells horrible. And he goes, "Okay, so we're going to do some jar tests. And I'm going to show you basically what we're going to do." And I fell in love with it. It was just taking this dark green, heavy chrome nickel wastewater and making it crystal clear with science. I was taking videos and pictures and showing everybody. Like and you can imagine, in the early 2010s, trying to get my little Boost Mobile brown phone out and video in it so I could take a video and show it to my kids. And I was like, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. How do we take what would literally kill the environment and us if we were to drink it and make it safe for the environment and for people again? And keep that going so that we can continue to manufacture parts. In this case, it was hand tools, it was sockets. My husband was forever losing sockets, like just from the garage, right? And so it was things that everyday people use without thinking of how they're made and the environmental impact of that. And then pretty much negating that environmental impact so that it's safe again.
I have to say, I love your enthusiasm around this topic. I think you're wastewater's biggest advocate, and we're going to get into that. That being said, we probably have some people listening today that are wondering how they maybe can get into wastewater or how they can even learn more about it. I normally ask this towards the end, but since we're talking about your origin story, what would you advise them?
To just say yes to the job. We are in what is known as a silver tide. Most wastewater operators started in the late 70s and the early 80s when the EPA was really cracking down on regulations. And these jobs are some of the best jobs you'll ever have. It's the best community of and network of people that I've ever met in my life. We're all so enthusiastic about what we do. Both of my sons, as I mentioned, are in the water industry. My oldest son was working at Domino's and he found out his fiance was pregnant. And he said, Mom, I can't raise a family managing a Domino's. And I was like, well, you have to do something. What do you want to do? He said, I think I want to get into the field you're in. And so we got on LinkedIn. We looked for entry level wastewater operator jobs. And he signed for a job with no background other than, hey, I know my mom does it. And they hired him, and he's 4.5 years in. And now he's looking at going back to school through his employer to become a civil engineer so he can start designing treatment plants.
That's fantastic.
There is a need for people who want to do this type of work. The preconceived notion is that it's poopy water, right? You think wastewater, you think the water that goes down when you flush your toilet. And while there is a huge demand for wastewater operators on the municipal side, there is also that same demand on the industrial side. So anything that touches an aqueous solution, the byproduct of that is wastewater. And we need people who are just as passionate about keeping our environment safe, having resources and jobs in our nation that we can fill ourselves in this industry. Go on LinkedIn, enter entry level wastewater jobs, entry level water jobs, and apply. And they will educate you on what needs to be done.
You mentioned jar testing, and everybody has their specific way on how they start. And I'm always fascinated to ask people in this field, what is the procedure? How do you start? How do you know you're starting the right way? What do you do next? What is your procedure?
So we deal with industrial wastewater. It's slightly different than municipal. We don't have bugs. Our goal at the end of the day is to not kill the municipal bugs. Most of our facilities have a pre-treatment permit. So we're the first treatment before it goes to a municipal plant. So we look at every process that is going into wastewater. If it's plating, whether it's electrolytic or electroless, if it's vibratory finishing, if it's anodizing, if it's pre-coat for paint, everything that goes in, we have to negate that so that it's safe to go to the city. So that's where we start. And then we take what we know about their wastewater based on their processes, and we determine using the hydroxide solubility or the sulfide solubility curve charts what target pH range we need to be in to remove the contaminants. We determine what type of coagulant they need. And if they need a metal precipitant to break chelation, we look at that. And then we just start. We start with 1,000 mil samples. We tend to bench test on 1,000 mils. We introduce our preferred coagulant, whether it's aluminum, iron, calcium, or lanthanum, based on what they need to remove. Or if it's an organic coagulant, such as an amine, we adjust the pH where it needs to be at, and we flock. And from there, we take the supernate from that jar test and we see if we achieved our goals with metal removal, COD, BOD reduction, phosphorus removal. And if we didn't, we start all over. And if we did, we fine tune that process and we scale up to a full gallon size jar so that we can then do economic studies. Is it feasible for our customers to use this process if they're flowing 150,000 gallons a day and it's costing them $1 a gallon to treat? It's not feasible. But if it's costing them a penny a gallon to treat, then it is. So That's kind of our standard flow through for how we get from a customer's wastewater to they're fully treated and ready to discharge.
Now, you mentioned there's a huge difference from, a dollar a pound to a penny a pound. And a lot of times customers will switch for less than a penny per pound. So that now brings us to the conversation that a lot of our listeners have. They've done great work. Maybe they got called in because there were problems. They did a jar test and they found that they were able to clear the water even further than what the incumbent was doing. So they're now bringing this knowledge and expertise to the table as well as product. But now they get a phone call from a customer, a competitor comes in and they say, hey, we can get it for a penny a pound cheaper, and we're going to go with them unless you can bring your costs down. What conversation should they be having with them?
So from my standpoint, we are fully transparent. Wastewater chemicals, everybody has the same stuff. You're not going to come to me or one of my guys and get anything different than any other company is going to offer you. It's iron, it's calcium, it's aluminum, or it's lanthanum, or it's an amine based. It might be different blends, it might be different types, it might be a sulfide over chloride. We all have the same stuff. I don't sell based on that. I sell based on the fact if you call me, you're going to have me or one of my guys at your plant to help you resolve your problem. And if you can get it cheaper, a penny a pound from someone else, and they will still give you that same thing, I'm going to advocate, will you do that? So one of the main things I think in our industry is we don't talk enough about lean wastewater treatment, right? We talk lean manufacturing all day long. Everybody knows what that is. If it's a cost center like wastewater, it doesn't get a lot of attention. So we tend to go with the cheapest chemicals we can get, which are commodities. It's the straight ferric chloride. It's the straight alum. It's the straight lime. But nobody really talks about the long-term impacts of using those. In this day and age, as we're advancing toward being more environmentally aware than we have ever been in the history since the Industrial Revolution started, we're becoming more aware of the impacts of our hazardous waste on the environment. So hazardous waste is extremely expensive to dispose of. There's not that many facilities in the United States that will take hazardous waste from a plating facility or an industrial manufacturer. And they charge premium for that. What Hubbard-Hall does and what I do is we help you reduce that waste. Lime, ferric chloride, alum, by their very nature, generate 70 to 85% more sludge than a proprietary blended product. So if you're selling lime for phosphorus removal, you're getting maybe a ton a day out of a plant that's flowing 100,000 gallons. And it may have chrome in it, so now it's a hazardous waste. If I can reduce that by 85%, is it worth it to go for a company that can sell you a product 5 cents less than what I'm selling it to you for, but brings back your hazardous waste haul off? Is it worth it to look at how often you're replacing your pumps and your piping from limescale? If you take all of that into consideration in wastewater treatment, while wastewater treatment will never be a profit for any manufacturer, we can break even. We have companies that do recycling of their sludge and they don't pay for sludge haul off, which is huge. But they can't do that if they use a commodity that puts their ratio out of whack and the recycler denies it because there's too much iron or too much calcium in it. When you're recycling sludge from the metal finishing world, you're looking at things like how much copper content, nickel content, zinc content is in that sludge. And if there's more iron in it or more calcium in it, then the recycler can successfully handle, and it makes it no longer worth it valuable to them, they're going to deny it. So we look at the entire wastewater process as we understand it's a necessary evil in manufacturing, but we can make it better if we apply lean principles to it, just like we do to our manufacturing processes.
I love that answer because so many people would just go with the price question. And you said, no, we've got to step back. We've got to take a holistic approach because it's not just what you're paying for this one product, it's the whole system. What a great answer.
Yes. And I think I'm seeing more and more people do that now. So I've been talking about this. I've been with Hubbard-Hall 12 and a half years. My very first talk, like public, stand up on a stage, give a talk, was Lime is not lean, right?
It's a catchy
It's
title.
catchy. It's a catchy title. But at that time, the majority of metal finishers were using lime as their pH adjustment coagulant for removing. And don't get me wrong, I won't knock it. It works wonderful, especially if you have a heavy oily load, if you have very specific things that you need to get out, and you're not concerned about your sludge generation ratio. And you're not concerned about how often you have to cut your pipes out, how often you have to replace your pumps. Lime is great. It was nature's very first wastewater treatment chemical, right? But the downsides of it are so extreme that now we're talking about it. How do we reduce our environmental impact?
Before we dive deeper into our interview, we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Metaspec, the new name for Pacific Sensor. While the name has changed, there's the same trusted partner you've relied on for decades. Metaspec supplies corrosion coupons, racks, holders, LPR electrodes, and corrosion coupon analysis. Everything you need to monitor corrosion in water treatment. Both their Texas facilities in San Antonio and Dallas are ISO 9001 certified, and their corrosion coupon lab is the only ISO 17025 accredited corrosion coupon lab in the world. They're also the only manufacturer using OCR camera technology to tie every coupon ID to its weight, ensuring precise and verifiable results. Every Metaspec product is proudly made in the United States of America. Ready to simplify your corrosion monitoring? Visit scalinguph2o.com/Metaspec and put Metaspec to work for you. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/Metaspec. Metaspec, precision, speed, confidence. Let's jump back in right where we left off. Another topic you like to talk about is One Water for manufacturers. Can you expound a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So, have you heard of the One Water movement?
I have not.
So, as an advocate for manufacturing and very aware of the impact our wastewater has on our environment, I became involved with a group called the Water Reuse Organization. And the Water Reuse Organization works very closely with the AWWA and the WEF. They help sponsor the Washington Water Week fly-in, which I was able to attend this year. But these three organizations are moving to taking water to a one water approach. And one water means all of the water, right? In the past, it's been broken down into potable water, wastewater, and in manufacturers, water, which is your boiler and chiller, your non-contact water, right? So you have these three groups. So you have the AWT that primarily focuses on non-contact boiler, chiller water treatment, a little bit of wastewater. You have WEF, which primarily focuses on wastewater and a little bit of potable water. And you have the AWWA that primarily focuses on potable water and some wastewater. But water is water. We're in a very enclosed environment. The water we have here on the earth is the same water that was here at the very first drop of water formation, right? It is all one water. So if and the government is taking this approach that water is water is water, manufacturers need to as well. So we look at water that comes in from the potable water tap. In wastewater is the byproduct of the manufacturing process. Instead of discharging that effluent, what if to negate the impact of our water consumption on our community and negate the impact of our wastewater discharge, which could potentially have harmful byproducts in it, as we're finding out about PFAS right now. What if we recycle that and make it a closed loop system in manufacturing where the impact is lessened? When we're looking at water scarce communities, especially here in the United States on the West Coast, where they're in severe drought most of the time, and it takes 40,000 gallons of water to make a car, they don't have 40,000 gallons of water to waste. But when automotive takes the approach of one water, and they recognize they're pulling drinking water from their community, from their local schools, from their local hospitals and nursing homes and restaurants, and even their own home, now we're talking the value of water. And it becomes, how do we take something we have to have, because everybody wants the iPhone, everybody wants that new piece of technology, and it has to be manufactured and it consumes water to do that. How do we take that water and continue to use it successfully so that we're not harming our communities and our environment by manufacturing that new piece of technology? And it's a new evolving area in the water world. It's not something that is clearly defined to me yet for metal finishing and manufacturing, because nobody's really talking about it yet. You said you've never heard of One Water. The first I heard of it was last year. So One Water is a unique approach. Instead of saying zero liquid discharge, we're now saying things like One Water. How do we get to a state where we recognize the same water that we bring in and drink and use to shower is the same water that is being used to make your iPhone, is the same water that's being used to water your garden, to grow your food. So it's an interesting way to look at water.
So it's a concept, not really a group that somebody would join. It's just that this is how we're going to think about manufacturing and how we're going to respect a valuable resource such as water.
As of right now, yes. Hopefully one day it will be a group. And you can go to onewater.org, I think, and start looking at it. I believe that is it, onewater.org.
We'll make sure and we'll put it on our show notes page.
Yeah. And you can start looking at it, and they do a much better job explaining it than I can.
I think you did a great job.
Because I'm trying to take this high-level concept that is being talked about for municipal applications and scale it down to manufacturing. And we're just not quite there yet. We're still working on it. But I think you get the gist of it, right?
Absolutely. I think that was a good primer, and we'll have that website on our show notes page. You mentioned how many gallons it takes to make a car. I think it was the International Water Conference. There was a gentleman from Toyota, I believe, and he said it takes 40,000, actually it might have been more than that, but 40,000 gallons to make a car. And they had a mandate, and I don't remember all the numbers. They wanted to get it down to 10,000. So this is that One Water approach.
This is the One Water approach, the water reuse. Organizations such as Intel, Meta, they're joining the water reuse organization, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Lay's, Frito-Lay's, right? All of these global multi-billion-dollar groups are taking this approach of how to lessen their impact on the environment and in these communities where facilities are going and they're water scarce areas.
You mentioned PFAS a couple of times. What are some things that you're doing for PFAS removal? Everybody seems to be talking about this.
So it's interesting, right? From my small slice of the wastewater pie, metal finishing is only like 2% of the wastewater pie. But metal finishers are listed as a primary source of PFAS contamination by the EPA, specifically hexavalent chrome plating facilities. In the 80s, hexavalent chrome platers were mandated to use PFOAs in their fume suppression systems to protect the workers from the carcinogenic effects of hexavalent chrome. So long-term use, over the years, they have moved to different, better technology, but they're still under that PFAS umbrella, right? They're still perfluoroalkyl or perfluoro short or long chain carbon compounds to suppress the fumes of the hexavalent chrome plating baths. We took an approach last year of we have to deal with it. We know we do. While there's not regulations yet for pretreatment for industrial discharges, they are coming. So what can we do? We looked at evaporation and saw that it was giving about 90 to 96% removal efficiency by concentrating the PFAS in hexavalent chrome plating wastewaters. But an evaporator and a condensator to reclaim that water is a huge capital expense. And a lot of second and third tier automotive and aerospace suppliers really only make one or two parts for their one or two customers. And they don't have that deep $500,000 budget to install these systems. So what's something that they do have a budget for? And carbon filtration is removing about 80 to 87% of the PFAS compounds that we found in these waters. And we did find about 12 consistently across every test that we did for all the different sites we tested. So we are looking at carbon filtration as we can immediately start removing PFAS from your waste stream. But you still have it, right? It's not gone. It's just now it's not in your water, it's on the carbon. So the second round of this project that we're looking at is how do we destroy it? So advanced oxidation is like the primary way to destroy PFAS compounds right now. But there are other technologies that are being investigated. So we're looking at advanced oxidation. I've been talking to a gentleman who's doing thrombotic agglomeration. That's the look I had on my face when I read this paper. I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, please tell us what that is.
So he is taking radio waves and dialing in the frequency of the radio wave to stop the motion of the electron around the base element to fully neutralize it so that it comes out of suspension and breaks apart any chains that it is forming.
I love the world we live in today. This is amazing.
Who thinks of this stuff, Trace? It is mind-blowing to me. So we're in talks with this gentleman and his company. Hopefully in October, we'll be doing some lab testing with him in this equipment to see how it works. There is also a company that is doing what's called ball milling, which is basically beating the compounds in the water solution with balls. That's like the very base level. It goes into super scientific stuff that I don't think we have time.
We can keep it simple here.
We'll keep it simple. They're basically beating up the PFAS chain and breaking it down through the use of mechanical ball milling. And so that's another option. Metal finishers are very familiar with vibratory finishes, which takes ceramic or steel shot media and beats the parts until it's a smooth finish. So that's another option we're looking at. So there's three avenues we're looking at. We're looking at advanced oxidation. We're looking at this thrombotic agglomeration, and we're also looking at ball milling. And then a subdivision of advanced oxidation, which uses things like peroxide as a catalyst and UV or iron, is electrochemical oxidation. So there's a lot of avenues for actually destroying it. There's research being done in Australia around using bacteria and doing a biological treatment and using specific bacteria to consume the PFAS, the same as if they would consume a BOD, COD, or a phosphorus or a nitrogen, and convert it and use it for energy and convert it. It's very interesting times in the water world right now.
I would say so. Well, let's talk about the ever-changing area of regulations. What should be on our radar for upcoming regulations, or maybe some regulations that we need to know about that are taking place right now?
In this environment, under this administration, there are so many things that are changing. PFAS. Under the previous administration, we were given guidelines based on best available technology for drinking water. But best available technology does not mean best economic, right? And what we found under this administration is that a lot of smaller rural facilities don't have the budget to invest several $1,000,000 into upgrades to remove PFAS to the limits that best available technology can do.
I remember reading something in like 3 parts per trillion was what they were going for.
So the guidelines that were set, there was 7 compounds put on drinking water limits. Of those 7, 4 of them were 4 parts per trillion, and the other 3 were 1 part per trillion. Some states, such as South Carolina, were knocking around parts per quadrillion ranges.
Wow.
And just economically, we can't do that. So keep an eye on that landscape as that changes. So we're back, like there's a lot of litigation happening around that. Who's going to pay for it? Is it going to be the BASF and the Dow, DuPont? Is it going to be ABC Plating down the road who hires 30 people and makes $1,000,000 a year profit? Or is it going to be John Smith on A Avenue who has to have water to drink? Who's going to pay for it? It's got to come from somewhere. So that is part of it. Chrome is still a very hot topic, as Chrome just finished up a 3rd round of iris testing. The EPA is putting out new regulations around Chrome. The copper rule for drinking water is always a hot topic to keep an eye on. Then you're getting into more EPA Zone 1 pre-COVID was discussing putting aluminum limits in. If they put aluminum limits in, and aluminum is probably the number 1 coagulant for drinking water, we're no longer going to be able to use aluminum in that area for wastewater treatment or drinking water. If that comes back up to the forefront and we start talking about that again, California is always leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people, but in the PFAS realm, the Great Lake region is actually driving a lot of the conversation around that. So there's so much that you have to be very careful not to get overwhelmed with it, to just take it one day at a time, read the articles that you can read, try to keep informed. Things like Water Week, Industrial Water Week really help bring it home to manufacturers and small rural facilities who don't have the funding to send their operators to the big trade shows. So just deep breath, stay calm, and do the best that we can do and wait for those regulations to come out, because they are coming.
You say your personal hashtag is the more you know. How do you make sure you're always learning what you don't know you know?
So that's an interesting, right? You don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And until you know, you don't know. I am an advocate for education. That is the one thing that when you have it, no one can ever take it away from you. So I'm back in school right now. I'm working on a 4-year degree. Part of that is my regular education classes, right? Because you got classes to get a degree. But I also listen to podcasts such as yours, among other ones, to stay educated around not just what's happening here in the United States, but what's happening globally. I read articles. I joined a group called the Water Network. Think of it as LinkedIn, but for water professionals. It's a global community. You make a profile, you join it. There's discussion forums, there's people ask questions, and it's global. So I go on that pretty regular, just like I do my LinkedIn or my Facebook or my TikTok, and see what's going on in the world. I read articles, I read papers, I read books, and just continue to educate yourself. And I go down rabbit holes, right? Thrombotic agglomeration was a rabbit hole. Like, how does that work? Who thinks of that? Who thinks to stop the motion of electrons to bring a contaminant out of water? Somebody is doing that. They're using radio frequencies to change the way water is treated. And apparently it's very cost effective. One day we might be driving down the road, instead of having an FM radio station, we're going to pick up a frequency from our local wastewater treatment plant and see what the bacteria are up to.
We can only see what the future holds. That's an interesting concept. Robin, if you could only get one message across today, what do you want that message to be?
Water is important. It is vital for everything we do and everything that we want to do. We can't grow if we don't have crops to eat. We can't stay hydrated if we don't have clean water. We can't manufacture anything without water. So water is important. I think so many people put it on the back burner. It was a commodity in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. You could get 1,000 cubic meters of water for 10 cents, but that's no longer real. We can't do that anymore. And as we're facing more and more water scarcity situations, we have to understand the value of water.
Robin, this has been great. I think you are wastewater's biggest advocate. We are definitely going to have you back, I think, to talk about more wastewater topics. But I do have some lightning round questions for you now. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Question number one. If you could go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as a wastewater professional, what advice would you give yourself?
Turn off the water in the polymer tank.
There's a story there.
Yes. The gentleman who trained me, Ricky, thought it was hilarious. At the end of his shift, he would start filling up the polymer tank, the flocculant tank, and leave. And it was the last thing on my checklist to check. And if you've ever had 250 gallons of polymer on the floor, you understand how slippery it is and how hard it is to clean up. So turn off the water to the polymer tank first.
That's just good advice. What are the last few books that you've read?
So again, I'm a huge reader. I have a book that I'm currently reading for enjoyment. It's a series called The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. It is a fantasy series where a regular American girl in her early 20s gets up and goes to the bathroom and turns a corner and she's in a dragon's den. And so I'm into book 16 of this series right now. I highly recommend it. Then, because I'm in school, I have to read school books. I am taking business law this year. So I'm reading Dynamics of Business Law. And then again, because I'm passionate about water and PFAS destruction, I'm reading a book about advanced oxidation processes for wastewater treatment.
When Hollywood makes a movie about your life, who do you want playing Robin?
Oh, you know what? I've never really thought about that because I've never thought that anybody would be that interested in my life to want to sit through a movie.
After this podcast? Are you kidding?
When I was younger, back in the 80s, a lot of people said I resembled Julia Roberts a lot.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having her play me.
So she did Erin Brockovich. That was about Chrome. So she's already ready for the part.
Yeah, she's already ready for the part.
My final question, if you could talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be with and why?
That's interesting. Historical figures, there's so many that we say we'd want to talk to. But honestly, I'd like to talk to my grandmother. She died when I was 8, so I didn't really get to know her. But she was a mail order bride from Germany. She came over to the United States in 1912. She was almost 10 years younger than my grandfather. And I never really got to understand her, right? To find out why. Why did she take that leap of faith and travel to a country where she didn't speak English? She left all of her family, except for my great aunt was here in the United States, behind. And I wish that I had that connection with my family that's in Germany, right? Who are they? Where are they at now? Are they in the water industry? Things like that. I wish I could just sit down and have lunch with her and ask those questions.
Well, Robin, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, sharing your passion about the wastewater industry. And like I said, we're going to be having you back. So I hope you clear your calendar for us.
Thank you.
Robin, once again, thank you so much for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. Such a fun guest. And you are now the official queen of wastewater, such a cheerleader for the industry. You speak so positively and well about the industry, about wastewater. I can't wait to have you back. maybe we start doing some wastewater segments together. You were just delightful to have on the podcast. And a Scaling Up Nation member introduced us. So thank you so much for that. That is the coolest thing about having this podcast. I love meeting people in this industry, and I have had no right to meet as many people as I have in this industry, and I wouldn't have, but I have this podcast, and you listen to it, and you say there might be this person that you need to be introduced to because they should come on the podcast. And so many of you out there in the Scaling Up Nation have done that. And I have been the beneficiary of that. I have met so many new people because of this podcast and because of you. And Robin, of course, is on that list. And we just have so much content because people like yourself are introducing guests like Robin to us in the podcast. And now the entire industry gets better because we get to learn from each other. Now, speaking of learning, that was the message that Robin really underscored. She said she was a lifetime learner, and her goal is always continuing to educate herself. And that is just something that you have to do if you are in this industry. There are so many things that change on a regular basis in this industry. And if you just rest on the information that you know, things change so quickly, you are going to be left behind. So I hope you are looking for ways to educate yourself, to learn new things, to figure out what it is you don't know. That's always a thought that keeps me motivated on how do I learn the next thing. And Nation, I am actually doing something in my educational background that's extremely challenging. I am pushing all of my limits, and it's something I've thought about for a really long time. I am now 50 years old, and I went back to school. Yes, Scaling Up Nation, I am enrolled in school, and I am getting my Doctor of Business degree. What the heck am I thinking? Well, I'm thinking that I'm going to learn so much through this process that I'm going to be able to share with all of you. I'm going to be able to share with the mastermind, and I'm going to get better at writing. I'm going to get better at speaking. I'm going to meet new people. And other than that, I don't know what I got myself into. I'm a little nervous about it because I've never done anything like this before, but the team that I'm working with is fantastic. I'm getting some great feedback on how I'm writing, how I'm researching, and you're going to be hearing more about this. I've got 3 years to complete this program, and you better believe that I'm going to be using this podcast as a resource for some of the things that I'm going to write my thesis about. Now, I'll tell you a little bit later, once my thesis gets accepted, what I'm going to be writing that about. But I have such a valuable resource with the Scaling Up Nation. I'm able to poll the industry, and I'm going to utilize that. I'm going to post some things on social media, and I'm going to ask for you to comment to see where our industry is going, and then I'm going to write about it. So Nation, I try to encourage you all the time to go out on that limb, to do something new. And if it doesn't make you a little scared, you're probably not pushing yourself as hard as you could. Well, let me tell you, with this DBA, this Doctor of Business program that I am in, I'm a little scared because I've never done it before, but I took the first step. I'm now in the program, and I am letting all of you know that I am in the program. So now I've got some pressure. I've now have some accountability. When you see me, you can ask me how that's going. And that is exactly what I encourage you to do whenever you're learning something. If you've taken my CWT course, you know the first thing I recommend that you do is schedule that exam and then tell everybody you speak to what that date is, because that puts some pressure on you that you've got to study for it, that you have a date and you're going to work backwards from there. So Nation, just want to share a little bit about some of the things that I am doing to take advantage of exactly what Robin said to make sure that we are all lifetime learners. I hope you are learning something each and every week on this podcast. And I really hope that if you are here at the Association of Water Technologies Conference, that you come find me. Make sure you come to one of my 4 papers, or please come to all 4 of them. I would hate to be the only one in the room. I sure hope to meet you. If you're not here, you can still meet me. We'll be at another conference perhaps. But if you have an idea for me or a guest for me to meet, please go to scalinguph2o.com, go over to our show ideas page, and let me know what that is. Folks, this is our 450th episode. I want to make sure that we have thousands of episodes more to go. And the only way I can do that is with your help. Let me know what you want us to talk about. Now, we've got some ideas, but eventually those are going to run out. I want to make sure that never happens because I love doing this podcast. I love hosting this podcast, and I hope you love it too. Nation, have a great week. Have a great AWT, and we'll have a brand new episode for you next week. Take care, folks. Collaborate and thrive. At the Rising Tide Mastermind, collaboration is key. Work alongside like-minded professionals who are eager to share insights and strategies. Together, we achieve more. Join us and experience the power of collaboration. To find out more about the Rising Tide Mastermind, go to scalinguph2o.com/mastermind. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/mastermind. Find out if the Rising Tide Mastermind is right for you.